Hi, everyone, and welcome to our third Flipping the Script event. Today's Flipping the Script is a teach-in on the intersection of mental health and homelessness. This event is co-sponsored by the NYU School of Medicine's Health by Housing Lab and the Health and Housing Consortium. My name is Ingrid Berthomeu, and I'm the project coordinator with the Health by Housing Lab. I'm really excited about today's event and happy you could join us. Next slide, please. Before I briefly introduce today's speakers, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules. So everyone is currently on mute and videos are off. The chat box is disabled. To enable and disable subtitles, select live transcript at the bottom of the screen. And please use the Q&A box to submit questions for panelists and to upvote other attendee questions. We will answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A session, and a recording will be made available at a later date. Next slide, please. Please feel free to join the conversation about today's event on Twitter using the hashtag #FlippingTheScript. Our Twitter moderators today will be Dr. Kelly Doran at KM and Kadisha Davis at KDidDavis. Next slide, please. We have an amazing panel of speakers lined up. In the interest of time, I'm going to introduce them briefly, but you can find more complete bios for everyone in our speaker booklet, and we will share the link to access the document in the chat box. Today's Flipping the Script will be moderated by Dr. Corinne Zodom, who is the Medical Director of Behavioral Health Homeless Services at New York City Health and Hospitals, and the Unit Chief of Extended Care Unit at Bellevue Hospital Center. Currently, she is the clinical lead for the uniquely designed and innovative extended care unit at Bellevue. Our first panelist is Reverend Dr. Philip Fleming. Dr. Fleming is a certified peer specialist and a certified recovery peer advocate with 13 years of experience providing support to hundreds of peers in New York State. Philip is employed by Baltic Street Wellness Collaborative of New York as the New York City Regional Peer Network Coordinator, as well as a social enterprise employee at Fountain House. Our second panelist, Jay Rumel Parkin, is a mental health and homeless rights advocate and the executive director of Help NYC, a peer-led community-based organization that advocates for and connects underserved New Yorkers to verified low barrier services. Our next panelist is M.A. Dennis, short for Many Attitudes of Dennis, who has been called the poet laureate and formerly homeless and undomiciled individuals. Dennis is a voice for the voiceless, seeking to document the correlation between housing and mental health. And our final panelist is James Litgett. James has been a trauma-trained chaplain for 5 years and recently became a first responder. He received his training through the House of Justice led by Reverend Al Sharpton. Thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Zodom.
Hi, everyone. I am, thank you, Ingrid, for introducing me. I am Dr. Zodom, like Ingrid said, and I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to have everybody joining us for this important conversation. I'm going to now introduce Philip, who will be talking about his experience. And before starting, I would like all the panelists that will go through to talk about, to tell us about their experience finding the mental health care that they needed when they were experiencing homelessness. And I'll start with Philip.
Sorry, just turning my camera on. There we go. So even though my time as homeless on domicile was brief, it was a result of fleeing a very bad situation. I'm a intimate partner violence survivor, and when I fled back in mid-May, I ended up in the shelter system. And, for me, it's been pretty horrific because anytime you say to providers, I'm a domestic violence survivor and you're male, people look at you like, you lost your mind, or, how can you say that? Or, that didn't happen to you. There's a lot, I face a lot of stigma, as an intimate partner violence survivor, which made it very difficult to, receive supports in the shelter system. DHS really treated me very, very badly. And every request that I made uh, for, services of any kind uh, was met with a resounding no, or I never got a response whatsoever. I have lost property, uh, through the DHS system. Um, so yeah, I'll just, as far as mental health supports, Fountain House, and my people here at Barter Street have been very, very supportive, um, and providing that emotional support, but also getting me housing. And I'm proud to say that on June 29th, I moved into my new apartment through Community Access's treatment apartment program. And it's been 7 weeks so far. And, my caseworker, Willow, and, the entire staff at Community Access has been very accommodating to my situation. So I'm very, very grateful to God for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Philip, for sharing your story, and congratulations on your housing. This is very exciting, and I hope things continue to improve for you. Next, I will pass on the baton to Rue.
Hey everyone, good morning or afternoon now. I'm Rue Parkin. I lived with mental health challenges since I was 9 years old that I can remember, and at that time I picked up amphetamines in a product called No-Dose that doesn't have amphetamines in it anymore, and it was to treat undiagnosed ADD. That continued through my teens, where I became dependent on amphetamines, and eventually graduated crystal meth. In that time, I was also fighting with PTSD and bipolar. I had been living with the symptoms of those diagnoses, and I came from a very privileged background, but when I came to New York, my life kind of unraveled due to the undiagnosed mental health. I had been in therapy, but I hadn't been under psychiatric care for a long time, and that was a huge contributor to my homelessness. That started around 2008, 2009, and led up until 2011, where I was street and shelter homeless. The challenges that I experienced with my mental health care was that I could not get a continuum of care because I was in and out of the shelter system. It took me many, many years to get stabilized in psychiatric care. And there were a lot of challenges that that contributed to many of my situations that I was in. I wouldn't go to inpatient treatment. I wouldn't go to substance use rehabilitation because the shelter system did not accommodate for those things. So I was on this repetitive cycle of in and out of emergency rooms, to the point that a shelter sent me to the emergency room 3 times. And the doctor said, "Why are you back in my emergency room?" It wasn't until I became housed in supported housing, actually with Community Access, welcome Philip to Community Access, that I actually was able to stabilize in therapy, in treatment, and in medication for my mental health concerns. Since then, I have been in supported housing for 12 years, and starting a couple months ago, I entered the Moving On program, which will move me out of supported housing into a regular apartment. So that's my little ditty with homelessness, and I'm grateful to be here today.
Thank you so much, Rue, for sharing your experience with us. And and hope. I think you talk, hearing you, I sense a lot of hope in your voice, despite all the adversity that you had to face, and I'm sure continuing to face. So thank you for sharing that. Next, I will pass on the baton to Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zogan. My name is M.A. Dennis, and I'm a writer. And one of the things, the golden rules of writing is that you show, you don't tell, you show. So if I just start with, was my mental health affected by being homeless? I would show you room 104 in the Keenan Men's Shelter on Wards Island. An 8-man room. Bed number 1, Pops, deceased. Bed number 3, Juan, deceased. Bed number 4, Bounce, deceased. Bed number 5, Big Dog, deceased. Bed number 6, Harlem, deceased. Bed number 7, Mr. P, deceased. Bed number 8, Bill, deceased. I was bed number 2. I'm the only one left. So I think that shows a good starting point for how my mental health was affected by being homeless. And there's countless other things like that. But as far as speaking to the question of what was the challenge of finding mental health services, well, the first challenge would be that I didn't even know that I needed mental health services. So in order to know that you're having trouble finding something, you need to be looking for it. And I wasn't even looking for it. I guess I am a proponent of on-site access, because that is probably the only thing that saved me, because I probably should be with the other 7, because there came a point where I found myself on the 103rd Street pedestrian bridge. And if not for a raccoon scaring the mess out of me, there would be 8 of us on the other side. So having access to mental health services right there, an actual clinic on Wards Island in the building, that was very instrumental into getting me stabilized. Thank you.
Dennis, what an introduction, and talking about those who passed, who were around you, and how you survived. And thank you for sharing the part about mental health services on site. It has been preferable for some, and some have not liked it, but I'm glad that you benefited from that, especially in a place like Wards Island. That's a very challenging place to be. I think I introduced myself as a psychiatrist. I think everybody sees doctor, but I want to make sure that the doctor that I am is a psychiatrist, and I've been to Wards Island and work in shelters, so I can only imagine how that was like for you. So thank you so much for sharing that in that fashion, especially. Last but not least, I'm going to bring Chaplain James Lickett, who will tell us how a little bit about his experience of homelessness and how it impacted his mental health. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. I would say my mental health was impacted tremendously and tremendously. Because the homelessness is not like a stable environment. But I never had any problems with services and seeing a doctor and stuff like that. But it's not a stable outcome. And another thing was, I came from prison to the shelter because I couldn't go back with my mother because she lived in the projects, and I had drug crime in the projects. So it's like, I say I felt like I didn't belong here, anything like that. And then coming from prison to the shelter. Matter of fact, I was at Bellevue Shelter. That's where I started at, matter of fact. To see people using drugs again, I said, like, I'll be back in jail. You know, I either be selling or using again, things like that. So it's very tumultuous. You have to really decide what you need to do and what you want to do, and you have to really focus. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists for your answers. I think I actually jumped ahead and had the first Q&A question. And so for those who have not, and I don't know if you have already taken the chance to answer, to talk about the experience with homelessness. I know everybody spoke about being homeless, but how was it like to be homeless? And then for those who have not had the chance to speak yet about how was it like to find mental health services or to receive care, mental health services care during that period of homelessness, please do so.
Something that I had a challenge with when I was homeless, and in general up until a couple of years ago, is that a lot of providers required me to be sober in order to get mental health care. So I could not receive psychiatric care and get the medications that helped me through a very traumatic time in the shelter system. And finding treatment where a behavioral health program would require me to be sober, but yet the only coping mechanism I had at the time was to use street drugs. One in the same. For me, I could not separate them because living in the shelters, you don't know where you're going to sleep at night. I was out on Ward's Island on the second floor and then the third floor. Back before they had double deckers, it was just single beds out there. And it wasn't a safe environment for me. So, and I had to be out by 8 o'clock in the morning and back in by 10 with nowhere to go. I wasn't quote unquote sober long enough to participate in a day program or go to a clubhouse. So where was the only other place I could land? I couldn't get a job because I was struggling with mental health. I couldn't get a job because of the curfews. I couldn't get a job because I couldn't find a safe place to shower or do my laundry. So where was I supposed to go? The street. And then I would get into my business of using and dealing, and then that would cause me to miss a curfew and then go into a psychosis because it's one of the major side effects of crystal meth. And when I would end up in CPAP, lose my personal belongings, lose my bed, and then I would go back into general population again and just start the same cycle over and over again, and then lose my housing package because I got shipped to another, and I'd have to restart that process all over again. So I just wanted to add that.
My last bout of homelessness, I was dealing with a lot of distress. At the end of my 5-year marriage that I escaped from. And then on June 4th, while I was staying at, the Bellevue Intake Center, I got word from my mother that my father has died of complications to COVID. And when this news was revealed to me, I was devastated. I never got a chance to say goodbye to my father. But, I turned to staff at the shelter, to provide me with that emotional support, and there really wasn't any, except everything's going to be okay, just those cliche words like that, and sorry for your loss. Like, you know how many times you hear, I'm sorry for your loss? Like, what does that really mean? I needed more than that. And thankfully, one of my cousins is also a home health aide, came to the shelter and we spent some time together because I thought I didn't want to be alone. So I felt the shelter system failed me in terms of that immediate emotional support, um, both as a survivor of intimate partner violence, which, by the way, I say the word survivor and not victim. To me, the word victim is it's demeaning and it's horrific and it keeps people down. Um, but I survived so much. I survived. I'm still here. That's why I use that word survivor, because I went through the fire and now I'm out of the fire. Survivor. Um, so my support really didn't come from the shelter system at all. It was very lacking. Soon as I would say, "Hey, I'm a victim of, sorry, I'm a survivor of intimate partner violence," immediately, I get stigmatized. I get discriminated against. And I moved around to a couple of different shelters. One in Brooklyn, Harry's Place, where at first they told me I didn't belong there. We're going to see where you're going to go. And then it was only after I filled out the paperwork, about 2 in the morning. Okay, you're supposed to be here, but we're we're clearing everybody out for repairs tomorrow for 2 months, and we're gonna let you know what you can get shipped out to. Which I found out at work the next day. It was a hotel all the way out in Rosedale, Queens, like boonic country, and they treated me even worse. Uh, I filed for a reasonable accommodation because I have medical conditions. Haven't heard back from them at all. My stuff was supposed to have been delivered to that hotel. Never was. Uh, Later learned a couple of weeks later that they threw everything out, everything. So in addition to my ex fiance, lived-in partner, stealing my possessions at the old place, now got the DHS system throwing away my stuff as well. So I literally had nothing. Now, thank God I get to go to work every day or 5 days a week. Like I had a place to go. It's my job, it's the Fountain House. So, I had places I could go, but I'm still having to, I had to wait, my father's death, what my ex did to me, hanging over my shoulders. But I was able, by the grace of God, to move forward, get the housing, start rebuilding my possessions, and have a regular church to go to.
So is it okay to speak? So I know that the providers are listening, so I want to try to make sure that I'm saying things that will be useful information to them. So the problem with the shelter system itself is if you think of a fast food restaurant, the register, everything is very structured. There's a picture of every type of sandwich. If I went in there and I said to the person working the register, which would be the shelter system, listen, I'm a vegetarian. I want the Whopper. I want everything, but I just don't want the meat patty. But give me everything else. This is going to cause a problem. They're going to have to call the assistant manager, the manager, and they're going to have to figure this out because this doesn't happen. We don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to deal with somebody whose mental health issues that they don't eat meat. So how are we going to deal with this? And this is now the problem because you see how others spoke about you're trying to protect your bed. You don't have anything. So whatever little you can have, you're trying to hold on to it So just the very issue of leaving the shelter to go get your services is stressful, because in the back of your mind, there's a clock ticking. How do I get back? Is my stuff going to be there? So it is very beneficial to know that there are providers here who are learning about what it's like, because now you can actually advocate for them, because, you know, they will bully you. And it helps to have somebody on the outside who will advocate, who will make a call and say, look, this person is receiving services. I want to make sure that, you know, there'll be a meal waiting for them. If they have to miss a meal, I want to know that there'll be a meal waiting for them. You'll save a meal. They won't get into any issues with their bed. And, you know, and then you want to make sure that the person will have transportation. So the awareness of what your client or your patient is dealing with in the shelter, when you show them that you have that awareness, not only would it help them to trust you more and make them more likely to come back, you know, if they have to travel to you, it will actually just be more beneficial to them maintaining the services.
Okay, I'm going to move to the next question. And that is, did you have any issues receiving consistent mental health? I think some of you had addressed that. Rue, who's smiling, did bring it up. When you experienced homelessness, did your housing status cause any barriers with continuing care with your mental health provider or maintaining a medication regimen? I think Rue touched on that, but not the others. And I'll just, because there are many questions that the panelists have for you that I want everybody to get a chance to answer. And one last question is, based on your experience, what types of mental health services have you observed may be lacking for unhoused population, either because there aren't enough of them or they're accessible or appropriate?
If I may chime in, the main issue for me is, you know, a proper medication regimen. You know, when a shelter throws away your stuff, it includes, you know, medication. So, you know, there was a period of time where didn't have my meds. There was a period of time where I didn't have a therapist. You know, my therapist left the practice, you know, after Memorial Day. So, and so I was without a therapist, and I think it took a little over a month, maybe a month and a half, for them to find me a new therapist. You know, but during all that time, you know, I was facing so many distresses. You know, I don't have a home, you know, because of the shadiness of my, you know, my former living partner. You know, the man that I married, you know, I've been with for 5 years, you know, bullied me out of the place. And then my father's death. So there's a lot that was going on, and, you know, I couldn't keep my head straight. But the shelter system was completely and utterly not interested in helping me at all. Never returned any of my phone calls or emails. I even had my found house care coordinator help me call certain people. No response whatsoever. And I didn't feel safe because I should have never been put in the general population in the first place, you know, as a domestic violence survivor. Should have never been put in that situation. But the excuses is always, well, we just don't have enough room. We don't have space. It's like their go-to phrase just to get you off the phone. Like, say Verizon kept calling them. It's like, is there a DV bed? Is there a DV bed? Finally, there was one, but it was all the way in Suffolk County. Like, I couldn't travel there because they expect you to be independent. I have a home health aide. So like, well, that's not going to work out for you. So, you know, DHS failed me on so many levels emotionally, uh, you know, physically, there was no accommodations for me. And the attitudes, oh gosh, like the attitudes, the language that they use against me was horrific, which added to my, you know, emotional distress and anguish. I heard that staff and other residents were, gossiping, about me, saying horrible things, anti-gay, slurs. You're disabled. Like you shouldn't be here. You should be in a hospital where someone can take care of you. I got in that too. Uh, very stigmatizing. Very stigmatizing. Was I supposed to say something else? Or I could just pass on to someone else.
You can pass on to someone else.
Okay, yeah, I'll pass it to someone else.
I
I will.
think, go ahead. No, go ahead, Dennis.
Oh, thank you, Ru. Speaking about receiving consistent mental health treatment, I guess I'm a tale of two providers. So there were the mental health services I received at Wards Allen. However, I don't know if it's because of funding, but there were limited resources. That's how I will frame it that way. Limited resources. So and that was very frustrating because actually, even though I know, when you're dealing with medical, you know, you're not really supposed to get emotionally involved, but I did feel that there was an emotional connection with the clinic on Wards Island, and that is a big thing. But it gets tempered by the fact that they have limited resources. So I did go to, what would technically be, more resources. I would go to Metropolitan Hospital. However, the issue is that I want to speak to the misconception about what exactly is someone who's homeless, because a lot of people think that homeless is the person on the corner with the sign, and that is, but actually, that's the exception. A lot of the people that are homeless, most of the people that I see is people that you'd never know they were homeless. They get up, they dress well, they even have jobs, they go to work, right? So one of the things is I find myself when I would be at Metropolitan Hospital, I didn't even want them to know that I was homeless, because I didn't know how they would react to that. And even on the times when I did, feel like I had to divulge that or I needed something again, like, if I had to ask for a letter, like I'd get a crazy look, like as if I was asking them to sign a permission slip to go on a trip or something, So to me, I think as a provider, you can't overestimate the importance of small things. And to me, like something small, you as a provider, maybe a bed is just a place that you just lay down and go to sleep at. But for someone who's experiencing homelessness and you're in the shelter system, I mean, your life revolves around that bed. I still 1-002. I still I still wake up. I still see that bed number, in my dreams / nightmares. So that was my thing as far as continuous, because I always felt like a catch-22. The place that I want to go get the services from, they don't have the resources, and the place that has more resources, I'm not having the best experiences with them.
Thank you, Dennis. James?
Okay, my situation was I never had a problem getting services. Matter of fact, when I went to my therapist and stuff like that to get my medication, they would be the person that I would talk to about the issues or problems that I was having. They would be the ones where I would talk things out. It's like things just shouldn't be like this. What I had a problem with was the care and concern of the staff of the shelter and the things that went on in the shelter. That was my issue. I would go for, say, relief with the doctors and stuff like that, because I talked to them. I said, it can't be this bad. That's what that's how I found my problems to be.
Anyone else? Rue?
I would love. I'm seeing a lot of questions in
Yes.
the that I'm just like, oh my god. So I'm just gonna say this: the answer to solving mental health challenges in the shelter system is not to have the services in the shelter, because as Philip talked about, as I've experienced, if we miss that bed, and Dennis and James also just took, if we miss that bed, all of our crap, all of our stuff gets packed up, including our medications, into a garbage bag, and they have to hold that. They have to hold it for 30 days, but they don't. Matter of fact, I pulled my stuff out of a garbage heap in front of the shelter the day after I got kicked out and sent to Rhode Island. So, and also, if we receive mental health services in that shelter, we miss the bed, we get moved. And that happened to me, and I couldn't get access to my medication because they would only let me pick it up on Monday, and it was a Tuesday when I got kicked out. This was at another shelter. I had to go to the emergency room, so I didn't have to titrate back onto Lamictal. I had to go, I think, to 3 or 4 emergency rooms just to get Lamictal. I didn't care about my ADHD medication. I didn't care about my Wellbutrin. I just wanted to keep my Lamictal active, because if I lost it for more than 5 days, I would have had to retitrate. It took me 2 days of going to emergency room after emergency room after emergency room to get someone to give me the dose I was on. I just barely made it. Also, there is this thing within providers called, and I hate this language, frequent flyers or emergency room shoppers. Please don't use that language. We're there for a reason. And just because we don't fit into the type of patient that a provider wants to treat does not mean that our dignity or who we are as a human should be diminished because we're trying our best to seek medical care. Back when I was in the shelter, there was no way to see medical records from other providers. If you have a question that there's a person abusing substances and they're in your facility for a reason, look at the shared data. We all have Medicaid, just about all of us have Medicaid in the shelter system. You can look back into our medical record and see where that's coming from. There was also something else in here that I wanted to address. And I think, towards the end of my shelter homelessness, I stopped saying I was in a shelter. I would just give the street address. And when I did that, I just gave the street address of the shelter saying that I live with roommates. The whole attitude towards the treatment I was receiving changed. I stopped getting the brush off or staying in the ER for 8 hours in a bed after I had been triaged. I finally started getting treatment. I was in and out. And that was a change. I stopped telling outpatient programs that I was in a shelter. I just gave them the street address. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you so much. The panelists have many questions, and some of them I see that Reverend Dr. Philip has volunteered to answer. Some I'm going to go back up a little bit because some people upvoted some of the questions. So before we get to you, to the question that Reverend Dr. Philip would like to answer. I will start with the question from Jenny. And Jenny asked, has someone who is close friends with a few people who were formerly homeless, how can we help our loved ones feel emotionally and physically safe and secure in the presence? Also, while acknowledging the traumas of their past and navigating the universally challenging past few years in history.
I'd like to respond to that question.
Please.
I believe the very first thing is just acknowledging their humanity. I think a main thing that happens when you have that experience of homelessness is you lose bits and pieces of your humanity, you know, and just little things like, you know, you eating with silverware, you know, just eating with a metal knife and fork. That's, you know, and it's these little things, you don't even realize them until after, you know, after that experience, you know, like I remember the first night of being here in my apartment and going to take a shower and saying to myself, why am I in the shower with my slippers and undergarments on, you know, because this is what I had become my process of, you know, how I would shower. So just treating them, you know, with respect and with dignity, and even like you know, opening up about experiences that you may have had, traumatic experiences, you know, and just letting them know that they're not alone. You know, I think that's a good start.
I like to also assist with that question. Hello, doctor.
Yes, sir. You may.
Okay. All right. It's showing a lot of care and concern, because if you're taking that time to consider that person a friend, you want to show them the care and concern and take the time to show that humanity, which they might not be, and they probably aren't getting in the shelter. So you want to take that time, say, sit down and, you know, have a sandwich with them. Like you said, little things would mean a lot to a person in that situation. And could be very, very helpful.
If I might chime in very briefly, I would encourage, you know, providers, compassion. Compassion. You know, for all of us who went through, you know, horrific situations that led us, you know, into the shelter system, there just seems to be a lack of compassion, and you know, all those cliches have been thrown around. You know, sorry for your loss, my condolences. Like, well, you know, what happens beyond that? You know, it's just words. To me, it's just words. Like, where's the action behind, I'm sorry for your loss? You know, is there anything I can do? So for the providers in this space to really compassion, start with that empathy. You know, I may not understand what you're going through, but you know, just compassion.
I just need to I have to just say one other thing, and this is full disclosure. I actually do know Jenny Pisani. She's a phenomenal poet, and the very fact that she is here and she came and took her time out to listen, this is the answer to her own question. This is how she is showing care for me, the fact that something important to me, speaking on this panel and the topic, and the fact that she showed up, that speaks volumes. So that's what I would end on to answer Jenny's question. Show up, and you show up for them, especially for things that are important, like housing, you know, just fixing the dysfunction of the system. That means a lot. Thank you, Jenny.
Jenny, I don't know who you are, but thank you as well for that thoughtful question. The other question that many of you upvoted was, do any of the panelists have suggestions for mental health, medical, and social workers regarding what is most helpful for those experiencing homelessness?
I do. I found out, since I've been also been trained in trauma for about 5 years, and also I've went through ACEs. It is surprisingly how much of us have been traumatized through the years, through abuse, prison, and it's so many similar backgrounds, and we all have that. And we work towards those areas and assist the person in those areas would be so meaningful and would help tremendously, I believe.
Utilize pure professional workforce and the shelter system. I'm very certain that those in the shelter system who are homeless, can relate, to the peer support worker, because many of us as peer support workers, we've been there. Like, we know exactly what it's like. We know exactly what's going on, and sometimes it could be as simple as, yeah, I really know what you're going through, and really mean it, as opposed to being cliche, or the talking points you got from a book, or your schooling, get your PhD or what have you. That's not, I believe, what I don't want to see that. So utilize the pure professional workforce, bring them in, into the shelter systems, the courthouse, because some of us has been there. I have a brush with the criminal justice system. I myself going to be clean for 7 years next month. And peer specialists, we know what it's like to to live with and rise above substance use.
That's a great idea, Phil. And then that would have the care and concern and the real talking to points of somebody that really means it and not just saying it.
As opposed to being the number of your bed, or you're meeting your worker, maybe
DHS
once,
worker.
DHS worker, every once in a while, shuffling papers. Not,
Right.
hey, how do you feel today? Is there anything that you need? It's like straight to paperwork. We got business to conduct. While me, I'm not paying attention because I'm in PTSD mode. I'm in manic mode. Like, all my problems are surrounding me like a dark cloud.
What can providers do? Use recovery-based language. Even if someone who is homeless doesn't have mental health challenges or substance use challenges, they are going to be in recovery from the shelter system. And using recovery-based language that offers an opportunity for healing, empathy, and understanding is extremely important. Also, be an example in your workplace. I saw a question in the chat about what can we do to change the DHS system. There have been people for 30 years that have been trying to change the DHS system, and we just got 1 hour added to curfew. This system is a machine. It is not there to help those who are experiencing homelessness. It is there to warehouse humans. It is there to ensure that the gentrified neighborhoods and the NIMBYs are pleased, and it's there to make New York City look good because we have a right to shelter law. Once you walk through that door, all bets are off. If you get out of the system unscathed, you're a lucky one. So the way providers and direct service professionals that are here today, be an example in your workplace. Educate yourself about recovery-based language. Educate yourself about what the needs of those who are unhoused are. And then practice those things and advocate for us in your supervision, with your supervisor, with your attendings, with your LCSWs, with your program managers, and the administrations of your organizations. Many organizations here in New York City say, oh, we help the unhoused, but what they're doing is actually just keeping the status quo that has come down from DHS for over 40 years.
Ru, I want to give, thank you for sharing that and sharing your opinion and your experience. I want to make sure I get, you're answering the last question already, and I want to make sure I give the, I want to make sure I give the time to everyone else to answer the question that you just answered, which is, can each one of you tell us what is something that you wish healthcare providers like myself and those in the audience understood about the experience of people who were formerly homeless or who are currently homeless? And Ru just answered, and I'll give the words to James, Dennis, and Philip.
Well, after being trauma trained, one thing I've said is two things I'll never do again. I'll never do prison, and I'll never be homeless again, because it's an uncaring environment. It's beyond me where I'd want to go. It's non-caring, and like if you lose your bed, your whole world gets turned upside down, and it might take you 2-3 days to get your bed back and things like that. No, is too traumatic for me. I'd make sure that never happens again, and I'll do everything I can to make sure it doesn't.
Thank you so much, James.
You're welcome.
You know, I'm formerly homeless, but in a way that formerly has air quotes around it, because I have a rental assistance voucher, and that has to get renewed every year. And actually every year I go through a major panic attack, because I have to mail this paperwork back, and I already know that I'm going to get another letter that's saying we didn't receive it, and we're going to cut it off. So I guess I'll put it like this. When you're in the shelter, your primary concern is getting out. But once you get out, you just have a different fit. Exactly. You now have the fear of, oh my God, I don't ever want to go back there. So it's like, it's like a horror film. You get to the end, you think that it's all over, but is it? Is Freddy Krueger coming back? We don't know this time. So that's my thing with being formerly homeless. There's still a mental trauma just from the fear of, will I have to ever go through that again?
Yeah, it's like every year, my main job is to fill out my Section 8 papers, make sure they're all, if I have a problem, I go see my counselor and get her to help me with it. But that's the most important thing I can do. I cannot not have time for that.
Thank
You
you.
know?
Many talk about that being homeless itself is traumatic in addition to everything else. Many of those who are homeless have a mental health disorder, substance use disorder, but just experiencing homelessness itself is traumatic. And I think it resonates into everything you guys are saying. I want to give the chance to Philip, because I'm giving a heads up. I have 2 minutes for Reverend Dr. Philip to answer these questions, and I'll pass it back out to Ingrid.
Because of generational roles that was placed on men and women, it resulted, unfortunately, in the fact that, male survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, intimate partner violence, get stigmatized and, discriminated against. And because of that, I felt like I got no respect whatsoever from the shelter system. I was deemed, a weakling. I could be carried off by the wind at any time. That I'm not strong enough, which they equate to being a man. Man equals you're tough, you're strong, you can handle anything. But all of us are susceptible, to some, degree, level of vulnerability. Not just, women, men, binary, whatever gender or not that you identify yourself as, we all are vulnerable in some way. So I'm going to say again, I think it starts with compassion, and not treat individuals, human beings, as a number, as a cares number, as the number of your bed that you have to go to every night. I mean, it's bad enough, that we're in there, but to be treated like the number of your bed or your cares number, because I have to give that all the time. Like, what's your cares number? What's your cares number? Like, I don't have a name. That's demoralizing for me. So I caution everyone to just, ask for the person's name. To me, it's humanity.
Another number, you're a person and you have a name. Thank you. Well, Ingrid, I think I will leave it up to you now before everybody start talking again. Thank you so much for all of you guys and for allowing me to be here. It's my first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zodom.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Zodom.
Thank you, Dr. Zodom.
Okay, I'd like to thank all of our amazing panelists and moderator for making this event possible. I'd also like to thank the Health by Housing team, our summer interns, Gabe and Corey, our summer consultant, Kadisha, and the consortium team, Tess and Harmony. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you at our next event.